some say Comanche, who Clark had met on his trips to the West, and who came back to see him, and in remembrance of their friendship, he chose that name. So when Paducah does come into existence, all the rest of the purchase have been laid out, the roads, the networks of merchandising. So Paducah was quite late getting started. But once it opened, it very quickly became the center of trade and commerce, a break and bulk point on river traffic and others. And it is now a second-class city, the only one in the western part of Kentucky.
Calhoun, the county seat of McLean County. McLean County population, 9,948. Area square miles, 256. Rank, 81st. McLean County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
My name's Earl Devine.
Hoppy Hopkins,
Hoppy, what do you do here?
McLean County Judge Executive.
Thank you.
Otis Griffin.
Well, this courthouse has been here since 1908. There's probably one here before. I don't know anything about it. I don't remember any of those days, but at any rate, we have a courthouse that's been remodeled and quite modern courthouse for a rural county.
Okay, what is the population?
10,090.
Okay, what is your major industry?
Our major industry is agriculture. We have 72% of our income from taxes from agriculture or agriculture-oriented business. Very independent group of people, good workers. In the rural areas of America, you have better workers because they have learned to work, because they had to come up the hard ways. And we have in a continuous economic development meetings. We're having one next Monday, and we have river transportation, fair highways, and plenty of capable, able workers who are willing to work. Down in Otis's neighborhood, the first World War veteran was, he wasn't a veteran, he didn't live that long. First person killed in World War I is from our county. And then we have the historic Green River. It has been one of the cleanest rivers in the whole world, the best catfish and fishing and recreation on it. But it's not quite so clean now, but it still serves a good purpose for wildlife and fish. McLean County is proud of scholastic standing that it's had. In 1978, McLean County ranked first in the elementary and secondary educational achievement contest of any school in our area. We don't have the most money, but poor people always work harder to achieve. We had the lowest dropout rate in college, one of the lowest in the state of the freshman class who entered college. We had the highest power of people staying in school who entered high school through graduation in those years. McLean County has been always top. We have produced many top students.
McLean was the 103rd county formed in 1854 from parts of Daviess, Muhlenberg, and Ohio counties, and named for Judge Allie McLean, a native of Burke County, North Carolina. He was a representative from Muhlenberg County, Kentucky, in the legislature, 1812 and 13, a captain in the War of 1812, congressional representative 1815 to 17 and 1819 to 21, and twice was an elector for Henry Clay. This county is situated on the Green River in western Kentucky. Calhoun, the county seat, was incorporated January the 7th, 1852, and named in honor of Judge John Calhoun, for many years a circuit judge and congressman, 1835 to 39. The first fort or station was built where Calhoun now stands in 1788 by Solomon Rhodes and called Vienna. In the War of the Rebellion, General Thomas L. Crittenden's division of Federal soldiers was located at Calhoun in the fall and winter of 1861. The first courthouse was built soon after the county was established in 1854, and the other built in 1904, which is the present one. Benton is the county seat of Marshall County. Marshall County's population is 25,859. Area square miles, 304. Rank, 63rd. Marshall County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
My name is W.J. Toad Bryan. I'm the Circuit Court Clerk of Marshall County. Marshall County was formed in 1842 by an act of the legislature. It was part of Callaway County. It was divided in 1842, and the first courthouse was a log courthouse that was built right on this spot, on an acre of ground that was set aside for that purpose. That courthouse burned in 1848, and a brick courthouse was built about 1850, and it stood until the night of December the 14th, 1914, and it burned to the ground. And this structure here was built back in its place.
What can you tell us about tourism? What would attract people to come to your county?
Well, as you probably know, June, Kentucky Lake is on our east and north side of the county, I would suppose. It runs all the way from Kentucky Dam at Gilbertsville unto the Callaway County line east of Aurora, the Agnes Ferry Bridge. And of course we have many, many miles of shoreline, and we have just about everything there is to offer in the way of fishing, boating, all sorts of state parks, recreational areas, and we think it's a great place to come. Now, just before I get too far from the history of Marshall County, let me go back just a little bit. I failed to tell you that our county was named after Justice Marshall of the United States Supreme Court, who was prominent back in the early days of our country. And the city of Benton was named after Senator Thomas Hart Benton of Missouri, who was one of the characters in John F. Kennedy's book, Profiles in Courage. So I thought I might tell you about those names there that might be important.
Okay. What about industry? Something that we've been finding out is that some areas of Kentucky lack an industry. What's your situation here?
Well, of course, until Kentucky Dam was built and we got TVA power, Marshall County was strictly a rural county, a farming community. I would suspect that 95% of the people in our county made their living farming prior to the building of the dam, and when the TVA come in here with the cheap electrical rate. I just wanted to say that this young lady here, her family is prominent in the history of Marshall County. Her great-grandfather served as sheriff of Marshall County back in the late 1800s, and her father, George Little, her great-grandfather was Mr. Joe Little. I've heard my mother and father talk about him a lot, and her father was George Little, and he served as sheriff of Marshall County. So this is his daughter, Ann. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you, Ann.
Now what was we talking about, June?
Industry.
Industry. So the Calvert City Chemical Complex came in here in the early 50s as a result of the cheap TVA power. So that's the main industry in our county. We have some more, but that's the most prominent one.
Okay. Something we've asked everyone, we want to make sure we cover you as well. Are there any political figures or any stories that you can think of that you'd like to share with us, comic or otherwise?
Well, there are a lot of political stories that I probably could tell you, but I think the best one that I know of is one time we had a county election for all county offices, including the magistrates. Well, in the rural counties of Kentucky, the magistrates have control of the road funds. One time we were having a race here in Marshall County, and there was a man that lived out on a dusty rural road, and he wanted desperately to get his road blacktop so he could get out of the dust. So he decided the only way he was going to get that road blacktop was run for magistrate himself, and he'd see that it was blacktop. He had a little boy that was about 10 years old, and he'd heard his daddy talking about blacktopping that road. So about 2 or 3 days before the election, I saw the little boy in the courthouse one day, and I knew that he was the son of the man who was running for magistrate. His name was Mitch, and I was just curious to know if he knew what he knew about politics. And I said, "Mitch, isn't your daddy running next Tuesday for some office?" He said, "Yes, he is." I said, "What's he running for, Mitch?" He said, "Blacktop."
Greenville, the county seat of Muhlenberg County. Muhlenberg County population, 31,979. Area square miles, 478. Rank, 15th. Muhlenberg County is located in the 1st Congressional District.
We're in Greenville, Kentucky. Behind us is the Muhlenberg County Courthouse. With me, I have 3 gentlemen. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves.
Okay, I'm Malcolm West, Muhlenberg County Clerk.
I'm Paul Camplin. I suppose a local historian. I'm a writer.
Bob McLaren, Muhlenberg County Property Valuation Administrator.
Okay, first of all, my role as county clerk, I sell all the auto and truck registration in the county. Also, we are the archives of the deeds and records for the county, and we're in charge of voter registration and getting machines out and what have you. Also, when it comes springtime, hunting and fishing, we handle that as well in the Muhlenberg County Clerk's office. No doubt, Muhlenberg County has to be one of the best tourist attractions in western Kentucky. We're surrounded by lakes, especially beautiful Lake Malone. We have a lodge there, have all kinds of good fishing going on there. Muhlenberg County is the home of a lot of famous people, such as the Everly Brothers, Merle Travis, and others that have walked the paths of Muhlenberg County here. So we invite people to come to Muhlenberg County. We're excited about our county. In fact, we have a slogan about Muhlenberg County. It's called BEAM, B-E-A-M, which is Be Excited About Muhlenberg, and we definitely are.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about your role here in the county?
Basically, my role is to place an assessed value on all property that's taxable in Muhlenberg County.
Well, the county was formed in the late 1700s and the 1790s, around 1796, and the first settlement here was Caney Station, which is a mile and a quarter north of here, and a few settlers came there, and they stayed there a couple of years, formed a little graveyard, had churches, had a little community, and they were having sicknesses they had in those days, not knowing what they were, and they thought perhaps the fog which tended to settle there a little. It's right at the head of Caney Creek. They thought the fog might carry disease in those times, so they moved up on the hill here around 1900. The old cemetery is still there, and this was the beginning of Greenville. Then a man named Ephraim M. Brank surveyed out the site of Greenville and laid out most of the present-day streets, including the courthouse. We're very proud of our courthouse. We think it's one of the classic courthouses in the state. This county has 32,000 people, and we have put out a brochure on tourism. We're very proud. As Malcolm says, we have lots of streams here, and they're all loaded with fish. Of course, we're on the Green River, which is a good one, and there must be hundreds of spoil pits here with the surface mining, and they all have game and fish. We have lots of beaver and oodles of deer, and so there's many things they could come here for. Well, then after they moved up on the hill, they formed another cemetery here called the Cherry Street Cemetery. It was a small one, and one of the persons buried there was the wife of Joseph Davies, who Davis County was named for. And then after a while they moved on over to the old, what we call the old cemetery here. But Greenville has been a tobacco town. It's been we are in a center of gas and oil. We're probably one of the pockets of that in the United States. We've had some big, and of course our coal mining has, at times we've been the leading county producer in the United States out of the 3,500 counties. So we have a lot to be proud of here. We still have much deep coal here. But I think that if a person wants to come here for sights, as Malcolm mentioned, Lake Malone is a beautiful lake. It's sort of our private lake at this time, but it's great. It's 15 miles of forks and loaded with fish. And we think this county is a beauty during the height of the summer season.
Okay.
It's certainly not overcrowded with tourists, so it's wide open. Somebody wants to visit. June, you mentioned the historical interest here. Once we had, before the 1900, we had a DuPont here, came down from Louisville. He's very wealthy, but he was a distant cousin of the main DuPont family. At that time, they were sort of falling on bad times, and they needed reorganization. This man ran for mayor of Central City about that time, and he was beaten by an eccentric doctor named McDowell. He sort of got upset, but of course he didn't take in consideration McDowell had delivered hundreds of babies, so McDowell was popular, even though he was eccentric. And his cousins offered him a position in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. He left here. Then he went on. They put him in charge of the big DuPont families. We know them today worldwide. And he immediately reorganized and did a masterful job, and he went to Old Hickory in 1928 and opened Old Hickory as a result to produce rayon, which they had invented. And somebody asked him why he didn't do that sort of thing for Central City.